Department of Transportation.
And what is your full position there?
Currently Director of Freight and Passenger Rail Bureau.
And how long have you been employed?
I've been in that position since 2007.
And how long have you been with the New York State Department of Transportation?
I started my career with DOT in 1989,
And have you been involved with rail issues?
since around 1990.
All right. And what are your current job duties?
As pertinent here, I am responsible for the interface between the Department of Transportation and Amtrak on their intercity service between Albany, between New York City, Albany, and Buffalo, as well as Adirondack service to Montreal and Intermountain service to Village of Vermont.
All right. And are you familiar with the petition?
Yeah,
And does New York State have what's called the high-speed rail program?
we do.
All right. And are you familiar with that program?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with that program?
Well, part of it is, one of my responsibilities are to implement it on the operating side of the agreement.
Now, what are the goals of the state's high-speed rail program?
We want to reduce trip time, we want to increase service reliability, we'd like to increase passenger amenities, all ultimately with the goal of increasing ridership and increasing revenues to minimize the state subsidy for the service.
And why are those goals important?
Well, intercity passenger rail takes cars off of the highways, reduces congestion, is a more environmentally friendly means of intercity transportation. Those support any number of DOT's goals across environment and policy.
And the goals of the program, are they similar to goals the federal government has as well?
Yes.
And does the federal government target specific areas for purposes of achieving better travel times or rail speeds?
Well, the federal government has designated 11 high-speed rail corridors across the country, of which the Empire Corridor from New York to Albany to Buffalo is one.
All right, and if you could just explain, what is a high-speed rail corridor?
As defined by Congress, it's a corridor where speeds of 90 miles an hour are readily achievable.
And again, so these corridors are designated by the federal government?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what are the trends and plans for high-speed rail corridors in New York State?
Well, the department, as we talked about it earlier today, the department recently completed a Tier 1 EIS to look at various alternatives for high-speed rail improvement across the state. Ultimately, we selected a preferred alternative that is known as 90B.
All right, and you may have touched on this already, but is the Scott Avenue crossing, is that located in a federal high-speed rail corridor?
Yes, it is.
And what is the name of that corridor?
That's the Empire Corridor.
And can you just describe what is the Empire Corridor?
It is the rail line that extends from Penn Station in Manhattan north to Albany, then turns west through Schenectady to Utica, Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo. The high-speed rail designation ends at Buffalo, but service continues to Niagara Falls, and we have one train that continues on to Toronto.
Can you take a look in the binder that's in front of you at tab 15?
Yep.
And is this does this come from the Department of Transportation's website?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and does this show what the Empire Corridor is?
Yes, it overlays the Empire Corridor on major interstates.
Okay, and is that what's shown in red on there?
Yes.
Now, what is the significance of the Empire Corridor for transportation purposes?
Well, it's kind of the major trunk route for both intercity and freight rail transportation across the state. And so we have majority of our services along that line. We've got 7 regularly scheduled round trips between New York City and Albany. 5 additional round trips that we sponsor that extend beyond Albany, 3 of which go to Niagara Falls, 1 to Montreal, 1 to Baltimore.
And does the department have plans to make improvements to the Empire Corridor?
Yes.
Okay, and were those plans recently detailed in that, the FEIS that we
Yes, they
discussed
were.
earlier? All right, and Your Honor, there is a tab 16 of the department submission. I don't know if it's necessary, but that is a URL to the full FEIS. Could you do me a favor, Mr. Hessinger? Can you look at tab 17 in the binder in front of you? And tell me, does this come from the FEIS?
This is the cover of the FEIS.
All right, and just what is the cover letter generally?
Oh, well, obviously there's a title, and then one page there. You've got the signature pages where the FEIS is issued by the Department of Transportation and Federal Railroad Administration. Just over
All right, and does this document include an overview of what the Empire Corridor is?
Yes, it does.
All right, and does it also provide an overview of the state's high-speed rail program for the Empire Corridor?
It does.
All right, can you just take a look at Exhibit 18 as well? And if you just describe, first, is this also from the FEIS?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and can you just describe what this is?
This is Chapter 1 of the FEIS, where the department identifies the purpose and need for the high-speed rail program. And so it really lays out what is the department's objectives, and then it uses, those objectives are then used to evaluate alternatives as they are considered later on and presented later on in the EIS.
And you indicated before that, so were multiple options considered for the Empire Corridor?
Yes, there were alternatives considered at speeds anywhere between the existing 79 miles an hour west of Schenectady up to 220 miles an hour.
All right. And could you take a look at Exhibit 19 and let me know, is this also from the FEIS?
Yes, it is.
All right, and does this document or this chapter discuss the alternatives that were considered?
Yes, it does.
And if you take a look at Exhibit 20 as well, is that Exhibit, or people only have Exhibit, tab 20, is that from the FEIS?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and does that provide an analysis of the options that were considered?
That's a chapter where the various alternatives that were at least moved out of, got past the initial scoping phase and weren't dropped early. It provides a comparison of those alternatives against both each other and the project objectives and needs that were identified in chapter 1.
I think you had mentioned before there was an alternative chosen, you call that the 90B option, is that correct?
That was the option that was ultimately selected as the preferred alternative.
Okay, and can you just describe what the 90B option is?
Sure. So all the alternatives were common between New York City and Albany. We already have train speeds of 110 miles an hour in significant parts of the corridor, and train speeds well above 80 in other parts of the corridor. And so the alternative really focused more west of Schenectady and what would be the maximum train speed, particularly where Amtrak starts running on CSX territory, where CSX controls the right of way.
I see. So when we're talking about 90, an option called 90B, does that plan, I just want to be clear, so that plan does not propose capping all speeds at 90 miles per hour, is that correct? All right, and do the plans include, are there any plans to reduce any existing speeds?
No.
And so would the speeds, maximum authorized speeds at Scott Avenue remain at 110 miles per hour?
Yes, it would.
And is that also reflected in the FEIS?
Yes, it is.
All right. And Your Honor, just for your information, tab 21 are the track schematics for the entire Empire Corridor under option 90B, which provide I believe there's the current train speeds and what the anticipated train speeds will be throughout the entire Empire Corridor.
Scott Avenue's in here.
Yes, Scott Avenue is in there. Now, does the department, under option 90B, have any projects planned to reduce travel times along the entire corridor?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And can you take a look at exhibit, or tab 22? And is this document from the FEIS?
Yes, it is.
And is this a listing of the projects that are planned under option 90B?
Yes, it is.
And is it fair to say that these projects are making a significant investment in the Empire Corridor?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And are those investments to improve, service and efficiency?
They are intended to reduce trip time, increase reliability, increase amenities for passengers along the corridor. In some places, improve state of repair.
Now, it's not listed on here, but are you able to identify some of the projects on here that are specifically designed to reduce travel times along the Empire Corridor?
Yes, I can. So, particularly, it's on page 79. Project ESC 36, Hudson Line Speed Improvements, proposes track improvements and realignments to increase speeds up to 110 miles an hour, generally in the Poughkeepsie to Line Clip area.
And are there other projects as well?
Yeah, the next one down is similar. It's in it's Hudson Line Speed Improvements, CP 114 to 125, very similarly. Alignment changes and track upgrades to allow increases to the maximum allowable speed to 110 miles.
Right, and for each of the projects, I mean, how much time savings generally?
Can I look at my other notes, because it's not written.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So give me a second. So our preliminary estimates on these projects is that both ESC 36 and ESC 35 combined would reduce trip time by 5 minutes.
And what is the cost of those two?
They are roughly $260 million.
Now, in the petition that was submitted, there's at least a suggestion that rail speed be reduced. Will the effectiveness of the department's proposals and the work that they're doing along the Empire Line be adversely impacted? Should that occur?
Yeah, if the train speeds are reduced, your trip time would be increased, yeah.
Would that effectively negate any potential gains in other areas?
A reduction in speeds to 90 miles an hour could result in a trip time increase of roughly a minute. And so, we're spending, or propose to spend $260 million to gain 5, and then potentially lose 1 here, so.
So is it fair to say that what's being proposed here actually has statewide implications?
Yes, every train on the network travels through Village Castleton. So every train would be impacted.
Now, does the 90B option include plans to increase rail traffic in the area of Scott Avenue in the future?
Yes, 90B does propose to increase the frequency of service.
Now, has the department already made significant investments to improve travel times along the entire corridor?
Yes.
And does that include investments in the track and area around the Scott Avenue crossing?
Yes.
And was one of those investments to increase the maximum train speeds in the line?
Yes.
And those train speeds, or those investments allowed train speeds to increase from 70 miles per hour to 110, correct?
Yes, they do.
All right. Can you just take a look at it's tabs 23 and 24 in the binder, and are those copies of the contracts that included those
Yes.
increases?
I'm sorry, your question, Mr. Byer, was it, ALJ Exhibit 6, number 23 is the...
23 and 24, that was the contract that included the upgrades of the rail line that passes through Scott Avenue.
Okay, and your answer is yes?
Yes. Now, as part of your job, do you speak with other states about their rail programs? All right. And are you familiar with what they do or do not allow?
Yes.
All right. There was mention in the petition about Pennsylvania. Are you familiar with efforts that Pennsylvania has made to improve its
Yes.
performance? All right. And what, to your knowledge, does Pennsylvania allow at-grade crossings in their high-speed rail corridors?
So their high-speed rail corridor from Philadelphia to Harrisburg, they have eliminated all public at-grade crossings from the corridor.
And what are the top speeds in that corridor?
110 miles an hour.
All right. And how about Michigan? Are you familiar with anything that Michigan has done?
Yes, I am.
Right. And what is that?
Well, Michigan has actually passed legislation which prohibits the creation of any new at-grade crossing on a corridor, on a designated high-speed rail corridor as designated by Congress.
Now, have you been here today and heard all the testimony that was given? Okay. And based on what you've heard, do you recommend that the village's petition in this case be approved?
I do not.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Questions for Mr. Hessinger?
Just a couple of quick ones. Just a note, it's nice to see Mr. Hessinger again. It's been a while. Yeah. Mr. Hessinger, bear with me, because I saved some papers. I'm working off the draft EIS instead of the final, but I know the recommendations for 90B were pretty much the same as they were in the draft. Is it correct to state that we talked about this corridor here was designed and constructed for 110 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we have, according to the EIS, there is a slower MAS in effect in the city of Hudson for 50 miles an hour, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Which is approximately, we're at milepost 134, that's 114, about 20 miles south here. Okay. And also, the Albany Minnesota Range Station, trail station is at milepost 142, plus or minus, right?
Correct.
Okay. That's approximately just less than 8 miles north of here, and the passenger trains have to come to a complete stop at that station, is that correct?
Every train stops at that station.
You said Mansfield?
Yes, every train in the corridor stops at Albany.
That's it, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Quani, did you have anything? No. Mr. Ford?
Nothing, Your
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hessinger. You may step down. Any additional witnesses, Mr. Meyer?
Nothing from the department.
Does the department rest its position?
Yes.
Okay.